The Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 5, DraftKings Picks and Preview. If you out there want to play in the best tournament on DraftKings, it's super fucking easy. All you need to do is go to the comment section or description of this podcast or video. There's the link to the Pat Mayo Experience DraftKings listeners and viewers. Maybe Visters is the way to go about this. Anyway, the Listeners League link is down there, $15 to play. They made it smaller because people didn't sign up early enough. It always filled, but they were like, I don't know about this, so we need to get as many people in. Just go reserve your spot right now. You can enter up to 3 times, $15. Best part, no rake. When I say it's the best tournament on DraftKings, I'm not shitting you. It actually is. Flat payout structure, double your money for a min cash. What could go wrong, right? I mean, you could be like me, and actually I've been good in the tournament the past few weeks. Good DraftKings picks the past few weeks here. We'll see if we can keep that going this week, and if it doesn't, maybe you can get into a draw for 20 DK bucks and actually win it. What you need to do, smash the like button for the episode, leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section, and tell me your favorite receiver below $5,000 this week on the DraftKings main slate, because that's what we're talking. The early games, the late games, no Sunday night, none of the primetime games. It's that easy to figure out. So when you say, oh my God, well, you don't even like Patrick Mahomes this week? Be like, hey, it's the main slate, man. Open up your fucking ears. Sorry about that, but I get a lot of these questions despite the fact that I say it every single week. The other thing that you can do is leave an audio review for the podcast. That is the best way to help the show, and if you do it, you can get in the draw for 20 DK bucks as well. Subscribe to the podcast, Pat Mayo Experience. Download all the episodes, whether you listen or not. You can just delete them if you want. Leave a 5-star review, DraftKings handle, something nice about the show, and boom. You'll be in that draw for 20 DK bucks. I'll be live Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and again Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, both on the DraftKings YouTube channel. Both shows will be available on that audio feed right after the fact. My DK cheat sheet will go up on Thursday on DKPlaybook.com. I think I got everything covered. From Awesemo.com to twice in 1 week. It's been Rasa. What's up?
Yeah, the double PMA bump. I'm excited. That's got to be good things for me, right?
Maybe it goes the other way. Maybe you got the bump from the first show, and now you get like the reverse bump from this show.
Do I just even out? That's not, no. Double PME. I feel good. This is, a little golf, little football. Perfect week. So, it's good to be here once again.
I did want to give a special shout out to my guy from DailyRoto.com, Mike Leone. Usually it's Colin Drew from Daily Roto that wins all the showdown contests, but Mike took home a clean $50K in the Monday Nighter. So big congrats to Mike Leone. He uses the Daily Roto optimizer to build all them lineups and make it super easy on himself. They've been killing showdown over at Daily Roto. So if you want to become a subscriber to DailyRoto.com, I'm one. A lot of people are one. You could become one too. If you go to dailyroto.com and use the promo code THEPME, you get yourself 10% off. I mean, it's ideally the best for Showdown. It actually is. It's incredible. And it's good for all the other sports too, but mainly football Showdown. That's what you're looking for when you go to Daily Roto right now, because everyone who works at that site just continues to win. But let's talk about the main slate for Week 5, Ben. Let's jump into running backs right away. It's kind of tough. Like, McCaffrey's at the top. You're going to want to play McCaffrey. Alvin Kamara is right after him. Probably don't want to play him. Not to say that he's going to be bad by any means, but it's a tougher matchup against the Bucs, number 1 run defense, top 10 defense overall. Then you have Dalvin Cook against the Giants at 84, Zeke at 83, and Saquon at 8,000. He's not going to play, but he's already jogging. So it looks like he might come back, maybe not for the Thursday nighter next week, but he could be back ahead of projections. When you're thinking about constructing your lineups, there's always I can take one of the expensive guys, then drop down. I want to look for the value. Is this just a week to say, hey, you know who's great? McCaffrey. You know who's great? Dalvin Cook. Take those 2 guys.
So, we'll obviously be diving into all of it. With all the injuries in some of these other positions, there's going to be plenty of value. The pricing is not super extreme. You're going to have the luxury, if you want, to pay up at multiple running back spots, and just the floors on these guys, McCaffrey in particular, never comes off the field. It's hard to ignore that. So even though, you may cripple some of the opportunity cost, I have no problem taking kind of the quote unquote free square with one of these type of guys.
Yeah, usually when we speak about free squares, it's, oh, a running back got hurt and his backup is $3,900 and he's going to play 85% of the snaps. Just use that guy and figure out the rest around your lineup. But this time around, like when we start digging down to like the rest, like would those be the two running backs from the top tier that you would go with? Like, are you a Kamara guy? Because I would much prefer Dalvin Cook in this matchup against the Giants.
So would I. I mean, we'll see about Tampa, but so far their run defense, not bad. And, they're coming off, they gave up a lot of points against the Rams, but maybe they are scrappy. They beat New Orleans in the Dome last year. So I would definitely prefer McCaffrey. I think you can make an interesting case for Zeke. The Packers certainly have been run against a bit. The Eagles had the success last week, and we haven't seen him really explode just yet. Seems like it's coming. They are at home, Dallas. So you have options up top, but it's hard to ignore McCaffrey right from the top.
Yeah, it's just, especially with the work in the passing game that you mentioned the floor, but it just also gives him that same sort of upside that some of the other backs don't get. Kamara is probably the closest, but he's not going to see the same volume on the ground. If he's getting the volume on the ground, then he's probably doing less in the passing game. With McCaffrey, it just doesn't seem to make a difference. That's the only guy they got, so they're going to use him.
No doubt. I mean, Kyle Allen, honestly, it might have been an upgrade for the team as a whole, but McCaffrey has to be involved. They're going to give him the ball in all. Yeah, he's game script proof. So there's no denying that. Now, it's not to say that there aren't guys as we work down just a little bit. I looked at David Johnson. He's getting a ton, even though the Cardinals are a dumpster fire. They're at the Bengals. That's a pretty good matchup. So you can pay down and try to save some, but all out fading McCaffrey just seems like a stupid thing to do for no reason.
So I really fucked this up last week, and I tried to shoot for too much upside, and it really cost me in my lineup instead of doing the very logical thing. But as it pertains to David Johnson, I mean, you can use him solo if you want, but I'm going to be making some Bengals stacks this week. I think just anytime you can get against Arizona, we were all gung-ho about it last week as it pertained to the Seahawks, and it didn't quite work out because Russell Wilson didn't have that huge game. But I do think that their defense is bad. I know the Bengals aren't good, but they have a very concentrated offense right now, especially with this John Ross injury. So you can use Andy Dalton, you can use Eifert and Auden Tate or Tyler Boyd. You could use all of them if you really wanted to, but the guy to bring it back with would be David Johnson in the circumstance, because we know the Bengals have a very terrible rush defense. And then David Johnson, even if he's not doing anything on the ground, he's going to be used in the passing game a lot like Kamara is. So it's almost like you're getting a cheaper version of the same player in that aspect. But what I did last week, my favorite stack was Lamar. So I went Lamar, Hollywood Brown, Mark Andrews. Hollywood Brown didn't do anything, very close to doing a lot. And obviously the touchdown at the end really saved Lamar's day. Andrews gets the touchdown. But I brought it back with Odell instead of Nick Chubb, which really would have been the logical guy to do it with. And I completely fucked myself out of a ton of money.
So I had a couple stacks of that game, and I had some Odell. I didn't get to Landry. I had some Chubb, but not in the right combinations. And yeah, you bring up, Kingsbury, say what you want about him, he is at least utilizing DJ in the passing game. But do you have any interest? I know maybe not with Dalton. Do you like Joe Mixon at all from the Bengals, maybe going against the Cardinals defense?
If it depends. Like, I'm not going to play so many lineups that I'm going to get to certain guys. Like, I'd probably rather play Connor against Baltimore even. I'm a bit iffy on that. Or I'd rather just go up and play Fournette against Carolina at 64 over Mixon. I think if I want to take advantage of that Bengals-Cardinals game, I want Bengals passing game and Cardinals rushing game, if that's a stack that I'm going to use. If I'm going to use Cincy guys, it's probably going to be the passing game, and that probably leaves Joe Mixon out of it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm not looking to make it a priority. I will say that is a game I could see a lot of different scripts developing. So I may look to him. Derrick Henry's there as well. And you mentioned Fournette is another guy who's just playing an insane amount of snaps. They want to lean on him, and he's got a good matchup against Carolina. Short is on IR. They're a pretty weak run defense right now.
So what do we do with the Chargers guys? They're both highly priced, but Denver is legit terrible against the run. So I can see them, especially with all the injuries that the Chargers have. It's like, let's try to make this game as short as possible. We know no one's watching because we're up against Dallas and Green Bay. So let's just try to finish this as, as close to 2 hours as possible. Make sure no one else gets hurt. I could see both Eckler and Gordon getting a ton of touches in this game. I have no idea who's going to control the goal line, who's going to end up touching the ball more overall. But I do know that no one is going to play either one of these guys because no one knows. Is there a circumstance you can see where you would actually take a chance on one of them?
Probably not, to be honest. No, you can make a case that Eckler, the way he catches the ball, he can still break one and get there, but I'm not sure. Obviously, the ownership is not going to be, he was pushing in high stakes 50% in some of these contests. It's a totally different situation now. I'm going to let other people who maybe want to hang on kind of chase that. There's just so many other options. Even if I was going against the grain, there were just other guys that I would look to before him. I mentioned a guy like Mixon, or, we talked about Connor, who's a little banged up. There's other priorities outside of the main plays in that range. So probably no Chargers backs for me.
If I was going to do it, it would be Eckler for me
Same.
over Melvin Gordon in the spot. Although I do think Melvin Gordon's the one that ends up touching the ball near the goal line, or they might just go series for series. And if they're trying to incorporate Melvin back into the offense, maybe it's 2 series for Eckler, 1 for Gordon, and that's just how they run it. Justin Jackson appears like he's going to end up being back too, so he could end up stealing like 10% of the snaps, which is nothing, but it does hurt the overall ceiling of these two guys unless they end up getting by like 40 points. But that offense is becoming so concentrated because everyone's hurt that maybe Feinberg actually mentioned this, that maybe you'll see Melvin Gordon in the backfield and all of a sudden you have Eckler just out at wide receiver because you want to get these guys on the field.
It's possible. I mean, we'll see with Mike Williams and Benjamin and whatnot. I mean, last week they ran out of people. It was a lot of creative players out there. So again, the way Eckler plays, he's certainly making great use of his touchdowns. He seems to find the end zone when they need him, and he is live to always break one. But I think you're kind of shooting for a pretty narrow gap there. Not for me.
So of all the 6K guys, you like Mixon the best? Because I think I like Fournette the best. And this isn't even this isn't even talking about Le'Veon. If Darnold's not playing, I'm not playing Le'Veon.
I like Fournette the best. When you look at everything, it's a great matchup. They're going to lean on him much more, but I think Fournette is going to be much more popular than a guy like Mixon. So it would be those two. Derrick Henry, I mean, the way to attack Buffalo is on the ground, and we know Tennessee wants to control the game on the ground. I'm not in love with that play, but I guess he would be in consideration for me.
Yeah, I think I would just rather play Fournette or drop down. Like Aaron Jones is really interesting, I think, against Dallas. Dallas, pretty decent run defense, but this whole Jamal Williams situation, he's not practiced yet this week, but he could return. If it was just Aaron Jones, I know the matchup isn't great. I could see him sucking up a lot of ownership with people knowing that he is the only running back there. And they did start to use him in the passing game towards the end to great effect, because running up the middle against Philadelphia was not working last Thursday.
Don't do that. He's a guy, I mean, I know everyone, mostly in the fantasy community, thinks that he should be the bell cow, and maybe he'll get his shot here. I'm not in love with the play. I think that most of my running backs are going to be pretty premium. I don't see a ton of reason to punt this position in particular. There's a lot of other spots to save on the slate.
Gallman? Maybe it's the last time we can use Gallman if Barkley's coming back.
I don't think so. I mean, I watched that game and he was good, but he also, I thought, made the most of everything and kind of got some things to break his way. Minnesota, talk about needing a game. This pretty dire. I expect them to play well and stifle maybe this Giants momentum that they're building with Danny Dimes here.
See, the problem is, like, we run out of bell cows basically at Gallman at $5,400. Like, you could say Freeman, Smith came back last week, and if Freeman doesn't end up catching 8 passes, he still wasn't good despite of that, but, at least it was something. If that's not happening, he could score 2 points. David Montgomery just hasn't looked good at all. And the Raiders' run defense, you can just pass all over them, so why would you necessarily need to run all the time? But the snap count's going up. Howard's probably not going to replicate that day again unless he scores 3 touchdowns again, which is just really hard to bank on. Then you start kind of looking down. It's a bad script for Josh Jacobs at 4,500. Maybe Chris Thompson at 46 against the Patriots, knowing that they're going to be down by so much. Freeman is probably a better play than Lindsey solely because he's cheaper, and they do exactly the same thing. So just take the cheaper guy. But I don't really feel anything about any of these guys. I don't want to play them.
No, it's pretty dire. I mean, Miles Sanders is a guy that I wish was getting a little more, but as you mentioned with Howard sometimes in the mix and just falling in the end zone multiple times, it makes it tough to peg the Eagles' production. Not going to go to the Bucs guys. Josh Jacobs, the nut-low matchup in London. I don't see many reasons to try to hero call someone down here. The Texans have a mess with Hyde and Duke. just a lot of bodies with not a ton of answers.
I guess the one thing, I mean, it is a mess with Hyde and Duke, but Duke is set up for a much better day here solely because Atlanta historically, and even this season, has struggled a lot with pass catching running backs. With Kenny Stills unlikely to play, maybe they go with a lot of Cutie in the slot, but maybe they start flexing out Duke Johnson into that area anyway. I mean, the big one here is we're not 100% sure James Conner's going to play. And if that's the case, you just play Jalen Samuel in every lineup at $4,100, right?
So if Connor sits, Jalen Samuels is going to be massively popular. He's going to be in a borderline auto play in the cash games, and a great tournament play will free up a ton of cap. But we'll have to wait and see. On that, he gets, when you're getting those little pop passes, those add up quickly.
But yeah, Chris Thompson and Duke Johnson would be the only two I'd really put in a bucket to maybe use, or maybe Oakland steams Chicago and Josh Jacobs touches the ball 30 times. Like, of all the guys down here, if we're just talking about volume, who's the most likely to see volume? It's Jacobs and Freeman. But it's probably not great volume, although the Chargers don't have a good run defense.
I mean, if I had to pick between them, I'd rather attack the Bears defense. I'm not messing around with. That is just a unit that is serious business. So I'm not going to Josh Jacobs. He may get you're right. He'll probably see the most volume in this range, but it just has 15 for 45 written all over it.
Top 5 teams right now through 4 weeks in rush defense DVOA per Football Outsiders. We have Tampa Bay number 1, New England, Chicago, Minnesota, Philadelphia are the top 5 teams that you can't run against. And the worst teams are all either on bye or not on this slate. Indy's the worst. KC is second. Miami is third. Carolina and Baltimore. But I think a lot of that Baltimore stuff is because of last week.
Yeah, I don't put Baltimore up there, but I mean, like I said, Carolina, just to go back to Fournette, they've got some problems on the interior. Do you have, and this is you know what you're getting with this guy, the volume's not going to be there. Tariq Cohen is always live, to take 6-8 touches, maybe breaks one to the house against, an Oakland team that I'm not certainly worried about in London. Any interest in kind of a really low-owned dart throw at 4,800?
At 4,800, I guess it would be price only. I'm with you that this could definitely work out. And much like Atlanta, I think a great way to attack the Raiders defense is with pass catching running backs, guys in space who are super fast, make one guy miss and go. That is Cohen's MO. And maybe with Chase Daniel, that all of a sudden we're looking at a bit of a different game plan now that he has been the starter. He's practicing as the starter, that we might see a bit more of an open playbook from Matt Nagy. But the guys in that area, I'd probably still rather play Freeman, who's below him. I'd probably still rather play Lindsey, who's just above him, or try to find a way up to either Wayne Gallman or maybe even just James White. It doesn't seem like a James White script at $5,000, but he's just a hard guy to predict.
The Patriots in general. I mean, sometimes it feels like they just spin the roulette wheel to determine, do they want to run it down your throat? Do they want to give White 15 catches? So pick your poison with them. I'm not looking, again, this is an area you're not going to feel great no matter who you roster because everybody has some major red flags.
The James White thing, I mean, in a spread this large, 15.5 points, that's usually a Sony Michel game, and you hope he piles up like 3 touchdowns. But I have a feeling Brady's going to go into fuck you mode this week after just a disastrous performance last week and just try to post as many passing touchdowns as possible and be like, hey, look, I'm still good, which would lean James White.
That would lean, yeah. I mean, even last week, he that's just what he does. I mean, we all know that the way he can, it's an extension of their run game. If he finds the end zone, probably going to pay off. Whereas Sony Michel's floor is just so dangerous. If he doesn't score, he's practically dead. Maybe I'll look to them. I have such a tough time with the Patriots, just the way they play. And with this defense, they're not as incentivized to really push it. They can rely on scoring, in the mid-20s these days.
So for me, McCaffrey must play. If you can figure out a way to get him with Dalvin Cook, although he is expensive, I think I would do that as well. Fournette is super interesting to me. I'm going to have to look more into Aaron Jones. Gallman is live, and at the very bottom, I think Gallman's probably actually the lowest I would go.
I'm not looking to pay down either. The guys that you didn't mention that I have some interest in would be, I think you like David Johnson.
I do like David Johnson, but if I'm going to take McCaffrey and Cook and try to figure out a way to jam those guys in, it's probably pretty unlikely I can get to David Johnson as well.
Fair enough. And then for me, I have a little more interest in Mixon. I think that I'm willing to bank that maybe the Bengals control that game on the ground. And as you said, John Ross is hurt. Maybe it's just a mixing game, and I could run it back the other way with trying part 5 with Kyler Murray, and maybe he doesn't get sacked 10 times.
Yeah, you can do Kyler Murray, Larry Fitzgerald, Trent Sherfield, and run it back with Mixon.
Look at that. That's a milli if I've ever heard one.
I mean, that's milli to come in last. You owe $1 million if you end up playing that lineup in the milli.
Yeah, that's self-exclude territory, which, hey, you know what? If you're not first, you're last style.
Hey, listen, I'm completely with you. I run some like garbage. The most success I've had this year, and like I was trying to design like more cash-esque lineups for like my 3-max tournament. I've been playing a lot of the $9 and the $3 where I've actually had the most success, just completely off the wall bizarro lineups. Basically, targeting the guys that no one wants. Like at running back, those 2 guys this week that will fall through the cracks who are legit awesome are Kamara and Zeke. Like if you just want to, and I like Zeke better than Kamara.
I do too. And you see that. I mean, the key to last week, and we
Chubb.
At Awesemo, we talk about this, and we have Manny Laura on who does amazing breakdowns. That Rams Bucks game, getting Godwin, having that, with Cooks and Cup, super low on plays, but you can get it. And if you hit lightning in a bottle, when you're trying to beat hundreds of thousands of people, you need to have that game stack. You need to have that correlation.
Switch to wide receivers. So if we're going to spend all this money at running back, obviously we need to save some money here. But is there anyone from the top end that intrigues you? Because Hopkins and Julio are playing each other. They're the 2 top price receivers, $7,800 and $7,700. Doesn't look like Devontae is going to play. Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Godwin, Cooper. AJ Green's not going to play. Adam Thielen, Michael Thomas, Tyler Boyd, Juju, Julian Edelman, Stefan Diggs, Josh Gordon, and Larry Fitz. Those are all the guys from $6,000 and above. It's super easy to say I love Hopkins and Julio here, but obviously with the way that I want to construct lineups, that's not going to work. So what do we do with this top end? Do you play the Thielen called out as quarterback, so of course he's going to go off?
It does feel like Minnesota is going. I'm not saying they're just going to stop controlling the game on the ground, but I think they do have to maybe tone it down a bit and get Cousins going a little more. So I don't mind Thielen in the spot. You look at the Bucs receivers, they've been difficult to peg, but they're probably going to have to be, keeping up a little bit, even though Bridgewater may force that game just a little less up and down. New Orleans defense getting better, but not pristine, especially in the secondary by any situation. And then Keenan Allen, I think we all know that the targets, until further notice, are going to be extreme each and every week.
Yeah, just on pure projections, I have Keenan Allen as the highest scoring receiver of the week. So maybe he is the guy to go to if you can jam him in. He's $7,300. At least you get a saving of $400 to $500 off the very top end guys. But it just seems like DeAndre Hopkins has been so bad for 3 weeks that game is coming where he catches 4 touchdowns or something stupid.
Well, the Texans in general, one of my favorite teams to really get aggressive. We haven't mentioned Will Fuller, who game is coming.
Will. We bring him up every week because the game is coming and it just never comes.
No, I am with you. I am certainly invested at this point. Everybody else too, like Smokey Brown, Hollywood Brown, John Ross, all the burners are getting there. Not Fuller yet. So what do you make of Michael Thomas? I know Breeze is not there, but that price, I mean, sub 7K, the mid 6s for him in a fine matchup at home. I don't mind that in any situation, especially if you're not using Kamara.
Well, that's the thing. This is the guy that I wanted to bring up, that I think that he might be the superior tournament play of all of these guys because you're getting a huge discount. He's really the only guy that Teddy Bridgewater will throw to. And we've already established that you can't run on Tampa, so you're going to be passing a lot. This is only a 3-point spread. And we know that the Bucs can potentially go out and light up the scoreboard, forcing the Saints to pass a ton. Now, they might direct their best efforts to try and stop Michael Thomas. I just don't know if this secondary can actually do that. So, yeah, if you can get him to fall into the end zone, he can put up another 9 for 101 type of day and a touchdown. Maybe you get lucky and he scores 2 touchdowns, and all of a sudden you're the guy with Michael Thomas, and no one else has Michael Thomas. I can almost assure you of that.
Absolutely. I mean, even, he's got one of the highest floors. Bridgewater's going to look to him. And like you said, the Bucs may prioritize to try to take him away, but they don't have the personnel to do that unless they really radically do something, and I don't see that happening. So he makes a nice play. He's not going to break the salary, even if you pay up at running back. And then, Larry Fitzgerald's a little lower, but he's part of that game that I think we both like in the Cardinals and the Bengals.
Maybe we shouldn't like that game.
Well, that's
these teams are awful. Maybe just take both the defenses in this game, because since both these teams suck so much, pick sixes for everyone.
That's what happened with the Giants last week. I was like, oh, shootout Paul Richardson season. Apparently not. Spoiler alert, that didn't work. So it's bad teams. They produce large range of outcomes. But on the flip side of that, when one of those games gets going, you got to be aggressive in some of these game stacks.
So if you wanted to start, would you be okay if you paid up at running back, starting your teams with either Thomas or Larry Fitzgerald?
Definitely. I think maybe trying to pair two of these guys in the 6K, even Thielen, for me, if you wanted to be aggressive, or say go to Diggs, pick your poison with these Vikings guys. I have no problem. Those are quality guys. Obviously, in a perfect world, I'd love to get Keenan Allen in there because I think he has one of the safest floors. And just you mentioned how concentrated the production is for the Chargers, but I don't think you need to really make sure you go up and get one of these top receivers.
Yeah, I think for me from the 6K and up range, while I do like Julio and DeAndre Hopkins, objectively the best, they're just too expensive. So per dollar, Keenan Allen, Michael Thomas, Larry Fitzgerald, and I'll probably go on my way. The only other one I really considered looking at was Josh Gordon. We'll get to stacks and quarterbacks, but I like Brady a lot this week.
Well, then him and Edelman have
not Edelman. Dorsett.
No?
Dorsett's the guy.
Ooh. Okay. I mean, it's always nice when you're talking about a game stack, you want to add those salaries up and see, what percentage of the cap are you allocating? When you can get some of those discounted plays in there, that really opens up the rest of your roster. Because if you hit the game stack, it's much better to have your one-offs be like McCaffrey and guys like that than punt plays where you have to get them right too.
Yeah, so I'm looking right now, pass defense DVOA, the bottom 10-ish teams or so. Cincinnati, or Miami's the worst, but then Cincinnati, the Chargers, the Redskins, Denver, Oakland, New Orleans, Baltimore, Indianapolis, and Philadelphia and Arizona. So two of those teams fall in the Cincinnati and Arizona game falls in there. But the Denver and Chargers game also falls with two bottom 10 deep pass defenses so far. Maybe that's just a game to target.
It kind of feels that's something that, God, I've been so disappointed. The Broncos have just been killing me in all areas. I've bet them a couple times, no good. Their defense for DraftKings has produced nothing. They can't force a turnover to save their life. And then on the other side, the Chargers, I know Derwin James is a big loss, but man, it's really shocking to see them that far down in DVOA. So Cortland Sutton, are these the type of guys that we're going to go to as we work down?
The hardest part to figure out is that Casey Hayward's still there, and he is doing an excellent job of limiting wide receiver ones. It's just everyone else on the team tends to go nuts against them. Unfortunately for the Broncos, maybe this is a week to fire up like Deshaun Hamilton, because I don't know who Hayward's going to cover. Is he going to cover Sanders? Is he going to cover Sutton? I don't know. He's not covering Deshaun Hamilton, or maybe Noah Fant is a guy to look at because the world is going to be playing Tyler Eifert.
Noah Fant. Yeah, those Iowa tight ends. There's plenty of options. Unlike running back, where I was grasping at straws when we were in this mid-range, there are some guys down here that I think you can look to. I know we mentioned Will Fuller, but I have no problem going right back there. Do you have any interest in trying to buy on Golden Tate before we see what he can do?
I don't. I think I'm probably not going to play Sterling Shepard because he's a bit too expensive, but he would be my guy. I want to see their alignment first. I spoke about this with Seeley on my ranking show, is I just don't know how they're going to line up in the personnel. If Tate plays the slot, Tate will probably be the more valuable guy, but what if they bump Tate to the outside and keep Sterling Shepard in the slot? Then Tate's going to be absolutely useless.
No, I agree. There's more questions than answers there. And then you look, other than that, we got to keep an eye on what happens. Devontae Adams, if he sits, what does that do to MVS and Allison? There's a lot of guys banged up here. I'm just looking. You got Q tags on McLaurin, Emmanuel Sanders, Christian Kirk, Gallup, Tyrell Williams. It's a big mess.
Yeah, Tyrell Williams just popped up today. He's not practicing over in London. I do think that he's going to play. You weren't going to play Tyrell the Gazelle against Chicago, though.
I certainly was not. You can just get the Raiders out of here.
Yeah, well, we can
No.
talk about that at some
Waller,
point.
really? Ooh.
Yeah, Waller's great every single week.
He is. I can't deny that. The guy is fantastic, but God, the Bears are so dangerous.
They are, but this is a perfect week to get onto a guy like that. It's almost like when you play, if the Titans had just have an abysmal matchup, which they do this week against the Bills, that Delaney Walker will still somehow be fine. I think that Waller's kind of like that. He's kind of like Delaney Walker 2.0.
It reminds me, Charles Clay back in the day. All right, fair enough, but God, yeah, just looking down.
No, but before we go down, there are guys in the $5,000 area that I know people aren't going to use that I'm going to go to just because I'm going to continue to use, like you mentioned him, I'm going to use Hollywood Brown every single week. He accounts right now for 36% of the Ravens' air yards, and he's getting over a 25% target share on that team. And he's just, like the past 2 weeks, he's just missed 2 huge ones, just like Will Fuller has. But I just think that Lamar throws a better deep ball than Deshaun, as crazy as that sounds. Deshaun constantly overthrows his arm is too good. At least Lamar Jackson seems to know like what he can do and what he can't do as it pertains to the deep ball. And the Bengals weren't able to do it because they had no time. But the Ravens offensive line should hold up enough and Lamar can make people miss enough, almost like Russell Wilson, where it allows guys to get open downfield. I think that the Ravens stomped the Steelers, and I think a lot of that's going to do with Hollywood Brown.
He's always live for the home run. I mean, it's weird. That first game where he exploded, he was just barely on the field. That was such an outlier. And now it is a guy that you can look to. It's just pick your point. He's going to have some games where it doesn't connect and then you're dead, but you got to live with that. Allen Robinson, any interest there right below him? A little more stability, probably not as high of a ceiling, just, looking at the two offenses, but no problem with the matchup, against the Raiders.
Yeah, I like Allen Robinson in this spot. I would almost go down to D.D. Westbrook as well, because I think that Bradbury is going to end up just shutting down DJ Chark or Chris Conley, whoever ends up on his side on the outside, whether he tracks anyone. And the slot receivers against Carolina have really piled up a lot of fantasy points. And D.D.'s kind of due for a breakout game. The targets are there. The air yards are there. He's incredibly fast. Like, if you want to play sort of a home run type guy, you don't necessarily think of him as it pertains to this, because a lot of people use Valdez-Scantling. Like, he's the guy everyone will gravitate towards if Devontae Adams is out. But I actually like the matchup for D.D. better.
D.D.'s a guy I've had high hopes, for a while now. And he's starting to get the looks. We got to make sure. I saw Gardner Minshew's apparently got a knee injury. I'm not sure if that's serious. It doesn't look serious, but he did show up on the injury report. They're going to need him. But yeah, DG mid fives, like you said, targets are there. And I don't think a lot of people are going to look to him particularly, especially unless, I'm not sure how many people are looking to stack up Jacksonville this week at all.
Yeah, no one is.
Yeah, no one, right?
But I don't think you need to stack out the Jags, but I think you can either just use Fournette or use Dede. Those would be the only two I'd probably go to.
No, I think that game could produce some value, but I'm not looking to target Minshew in particular. You got right below him DJ Moore on the other side if you wanted to run it back with another pass catcher. And pair up, even if you're not stacking the game fully, just having a couple of targets in the same game.
I would say, like, if you're going to do that, I wouldn't touch, like, Curtis Samuel is the one with the higher A dot right now. I like DJ Moore as a receiver better, but I think it's just very logical that if you're going to try to, like, mini stack that game or get two pieces of it, just take McCaffrey on the other side. So,
of course, I mean, the running backs on both teams are certainly the preferred play. But again, you're always weighing. You're going to be much more unique if you try to get production from that game in a different way. You're almost leveraging against them. Now, I'm not looking to do that in all spots because I absolutely love both of these running backs. And I think more often than not, they're going to be doing the heavy lifting.
If Josh Allen plays, would you play John Brown?
So I don't understand how poor John Brown, he gets traded, which is a great thing for him. And then Lamar apparently can throw the deep ball. Who knew? I have no problem with him. I think that ownership dictating, maybe more people do look to some of it. And he is one of those guys. He's in the bucket, home run balls. You're going to have some bad weeks, but we've seen it already. He has 5X upside. So I have no problem with that. I don't have a strong take at Tennessee is not the ideal spot, but at the same time, it's not like they're Where do you have the VOA? I'm assuming middle of the pack-ish.
Yeah, they're 12th against the pass
Okay.
so far this season.
So yeah, I mean, I have no problem with him. Not a priority, but I wouldn't hesitate to fire him up either.
Like Beasley probably ends up drawing the better matchup just because he's going to wander around the slot. But if it's Barkley, I don't really know what the difference between Josh Allen and Matt Barkley is as it pertains to propping up receiving totals. I just know that Josh Allen's a better quarterback to try to win games with. But fantasy wise, like I don't even know how this affects these guys, whether it's good or bad.
I mean, Josh Allen, he seems to me more primed to take the deep shots. He's got a cannon. We all know that. So for John Brown, I would prefer that Allen is there just to run the offense. If it's Barkley, it could be a kind of ugly game where the Bills are leaning on the defense. I'm not sure I'd look to the targets then.
And Beasley, despite all of the target share that he's getting, which is great, he's just still a bit too expensive for what I want him to do. I'd rather take a shot on one of these burner guys. So I think Dorsett's in an excellent spot at $4,900. Cortland Sutton, if you don't think that Hayward's going to be on him, is a very good price at $4,900. And then you can just drop down into this middle tier, and there's two guys. I mean, we've talked about Will Fuller like 8 times so far. But I think that he's going to end up being really popular, and I get it. It's a perfect opportunity for him. But what if you just stay at that same price? No one wants to do it, and even if Darnold's not back, Luke Falk was actually the one guy he was taking shots with was Robbie Anderson, and he gets Philly.
So I know I'm a broken record, but Robbie Anderson is him and Will Fuller. You're right. You're going to get a fraction of the ownership, and they are very similar in the sense. You know, I think I want to say it was the Broncos last year where Robbie Anderson had like 3 catches, $130 and 2, and he can get behind defense. Now Luke Falk, we'll see. That's going to be a tough spread. They're 2 touchdown dogs on the road. My God, but they're going to be playing from behind. Maybe you can. I really like it. Like you said, Will Fuller is going to be more popular considering when you look, he hasn't had a good game yet, but people are not deterred just yet either.
No, because you see the highlight every week of the ball just touching his fingertips for an 80-yard touchdown.
And he plays 90-something% of snaps. He's always on the field. It's hard not to like him, but at the same time, someone like Robbie Anderson, if you're going against the grain in the spot and you do want to pivot, he still has that ceiling. It's just not as an ideal situation.
Yeah, if we go down below $4,000, I think we've kind of thrown out the names so far. It does seem to me objectively that Auden Tate is the best play with John Ross out.
So this is a guy, Dalton was looking to him. He seems the red zone threat. We've mentioned how bad the Cardinals defense is. Probably your best bet down there at 3,500. I don't see a ton else of really what I'm looking for. You know, the Saints guys are down there, but with Bridgewater, like you said, he seems keen to just keep it low key and not be taking deep shots with a guy like Ted Ginn. I think Traquan's hurt anyway, so not much down here.
Like the only other one would be Inman, but Inman's dealing with this quad injury. But if somehow there was a circumstance like last week where Benjamin was out, Mike Williams was out, and then all of a sudden Inman is on the field, I think that he becomes a really good play at $3,400, but he's probably not going to play either. And that leaves like General Patton and Jeremy Davis.
They actually have run out of people. Not much. You mentioned Deshaun Hamilton. If you're looking again, just to be different with that Broncos game and Sutton, maybe he does get Hayward and Hamilton kind of work underneath. But I don't see a ton down here. And I don't think you need, even paying up at running back, it's not as premium. You know, the pricing is not that tight. You don't need to go this deep if you don't want to.
Well, there are 2 more guys from down here, and they're both on the same team in that game that we like, because Christian Kirk does appear like he is not going to play. He might play, but as of right now with his ankle, it doesn't seem like he's going to suit up on Sunday. So that leaves, I was big on Keyshawn Johnson last week because I expected his snap count to double because Damiere Byrd wasn't playing and they cut Michael Crabtree. That did not happen whatsoever. Now it might because Christian Kirk is out, so he can end up being an okay play. But if you just go down to $3,000, the guy that ended up playing all the snaps was Trent Sherfield.
So, yeah, I mean, the Cardinals are tough because they run so many receivers at once. These guys are all on the field a ton. I'm a little skeptical. You know, I tried a couple weeks ago to take a min shot with Bird himself, and it did not work. I'm not sure I need to get down there. Now, if I say I do make a lineup where I want McCaffrey, Dalvin, and say like, one of the other top guys in terms of running backs where I take all three, maybe you do run it back with a guy like this and try to just say, you know what, he's going to be on the field a ton. Maybe he can luck box into a lucky touchdown or something. But more often than not, I'm not sure I have to go down this low.
Mohamed Sanu, $4,200, 12 targets last week, no fewer than 4 catches in any game so far.
The Falcons frustrate me across the board. I've been trying to play Ridley. That guy used to catch 4 touchdowns a game, and now just nothing. It's insane. Yeah, I mean, it's funny just looking at it. The targets have been pretty impressive across the board, and sadly, they're playing from behind more often than not. Games should be up and down. Maybe we're going to get to quarterbacks, and I do like the Texans quite a bit. Maybe I look to run it back with a cheaper pass catcher besides Julio.
Yeah.
So no, maybe he'll throw a touchdown. That guy's super quarterback.
Hey, John Brown almost had a passing touchdown last week.
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
really?
They tried. I think it was the 4th down play. They threw like a behind the line of scrimmage pass to John Brown, and then he had a guy open, and just it looks like he's never thrown a ball before.
Sad. Odell threw a bomb in that game. He had
Odell. Yeah, Odell has one of the best arms in football.
Yeah, they need to just get rid of Baker and just go with him. But no, like I said, I think the nice thing about receiver this week is you have pretty playable options from the bottom all the way up. There's not a lot of den ranges. So no matter what type of build you have, you're going to have some options to fill out that roster.
Randall Cobb revenge game?
I'm a big Randall Cobb guy. Maybe if you want to say Jair Alexander, maybe he can shut down Amare. Cobb working underneath. We'll see what's up with Gallup.
Well, the whole problem is, I mean, Gallup's probably he's real iffy to play, so it'd be Devin Smith on the outside. But regardless of whether Jair Alexander can shut down Amari Cooper or not, as we witnessed on Sunday night, they're just going to throw to him anyway.
So it's a fair point. The problem with Cobb, regardless of that, is just he's kind of in the Cole Beasley bucket where he's going to get some catches. I'm just not sure, even if you get him right, what does he give you? He's going to have to luck box into some touchdowns. I don't know how high that ceiling is, but 4,200 price is somewhat fair. AJ Brown right next to him, not going to go there. So yeah, I don't have much to say about Cobb, to be honest.
Yeah, so I think a lot of what happens with your lineup, especially who you pick at receiver, if we're paying up at running back, you can only pay up at so many positions before you have to start hitting the dregs. And at quarterback, it's a pretty decent week to pay up, I think. Like, you can go with Andy Dalton at $5,700 if you'd like. That's not a bad play by any means. But once you start going down the list, unless you use like Chase Daniel at $4,800, I don't know who the other cheap quarterback is.
It's funny. We had that changing of the guard, where Daniel Jones and Kyle Allen were down there and people went to them, and it certainly paid off. This is a week I'm not sure that I go below someone like Dalton, to be honest. You have him and you have Rivers right next to him, who I think is a fine option. We talked about that game could be sneaky scoring, but man, the top end options for a change really feel like it's worth paying up, which isn't always the case at quarterback.
So I think most will gravitate towards Deshaun. I completely understand that. I would prefer Lamar, and like I said, I'm going to use Tom Brady. So that's probably the way to go for me. So it'd be, I'll have some Lamar stacks, I'll have some Brady stacks, and I'll probably have some Dalton stacks. Although Daniel Jones does intrigue me here, because everyone's just going to say this matchup sucks for him. He's going to be bad, and on paper it is. But we've seen what his fantasy upside is, that maybe he just runs around and scores 2 touchdowns.
He reminds me, I mean, not even in style, but with Josh Allen a lot of times, even last year, where it was like, it's not that he was super efficient or even good if you wanted to argue the other side. It's just he's running around, he's running for his life, he's maybe playing from behind. He can get there kind of in an ugly way for you. When I look at the price, not that it's premium by any stretch, $100 to Dalton, $200 to Rivers, I just prefer those guys. Let me ask you, though, if you do go to Brady, are you even going to try to run it back with Redskins?
The only one I would consider would be Chris Thompson.
Okay. Those receivers are just too brutal.
But but the thing is, if you play Brady, you have to think it's full out onslaught mode for him. So I wouldn't even be like, Who do you stack Brady with? I think is the better question. I think it's Josh Gordon for sure. I think it's Dorsett and Brady. I think those would be the three that I'd play. Just because Edelman's banged up right now, and this seems to be a good week to say, hey, we're up by a bunch. Like, let's call it quits here. Get yourself healthy. I don't know if that's actually going to be the case. Because, I mean, if I was actually good at predicting football, I wouldn't have this show. I'd just be a millionaire, and that would be it. But when I try to figure out how I think the game is going to go, if I want to stack Brady, here's how it goes. The two guys that really give me pause of should I include them if I do a whole bunch. Let's say if I play 20 lineups and I just throw a whole bunch in the 3 or the 9, whatever it might be, and I play 8 Brady stacks. Do I mix in like Jacoby Myers? Do I mix in Ben Watson, who's making his return? Or do I just stick with those 3 guys and hope that that's where it goes?
So for me, the guy, I would put James White in the mix.
James White, actually should be in the mix. You're correct.
Okay. So I like him mixing and matching with those receivers. I'm not sure I go to those other guys per se, just because you have enough with them. You know, you can mix and match with a couple of them. You could run all 4. Then you probably want a Redskin on the other side. Then again, if you do think the Patriots want to hang like 50, maybe that does work. So yeah, James White would be the other one. Do you think Jameis building off that monster game is going to be popular?
I have no idea.
I feel like he is.
If he is, then I'm not going to play him. I'll play Saints D.
I honestly don't hate that at all. In the dome, we know, even last week, I mean, Jameis, it's unbelievable the way, like, I thought the Rams were going to come back and somehow win that game and save my survivor teams. Didn't happen.
Well, how many points did the Rams D end up scoring despite giving up like 52 points, like 13 points or something?
Yeah, it's when they played the Chiefs on, yeah, it's insane. That just shows what you're looking for when we'll talk about defense, but I don't think I'm there either if he's going to be popular. I would rather, he takes so many sacks. Kyler Murray, he hasn't really busted out, but at the same time, he hasn't killed you in any week either. I'm still waiting for that big game, and maybe this is it for him.
Do you know who has the 2 worst offensive lines in football by adjusted sack rate?
Just the Cardinals somehow twice. It's just them times 2.
Well, they're 1. Guess who the other is?
The Bengals?
Yeah.
See, that game is that's one of those games, and I hate saying this because it sounds like, what are you talking about? I like both of these teams if you told me you wanted to stack them. And if you told me you were playing the Bengals defense, I'd say I totally get that merit too on a different team, because it's just amazing how poor the personnel is across the board.
Yeah, and like the teams are so, and because the Cardinals play such an up-tempo pace, you know there's going to be a lot of plays in this game. And if you're dealing with 2 teams with bad offensive lines, there's going to be sacks. If there's sacks, that means bad decisions are going to be made. And let's say Dalton throws a pick. Well, it doesn't necessarily need to be a pick 6, but it could set up the Cardinals twice on the 10-yard line of the Bengals. And all of a sudden you're looking at Boku points. And it works the other way too, that it just seems like the way that these teams are structured, and they're both bad at exactly the same things and good, not necessarily good at anything, but like the stuff that they're good at is somewhat similar. They both kind of want to play up pace a little bit, and they both love kicking field goals for whatever reason, but that's probably not a great part of this game. However, it's a situation where there's going to be weird opportunities for players to score points here, so you do want to have access to it.
I agree. Yeah, and for me, if Jameis is somewhat of a lightning rod, quarterback rarely, if ever, do we get actual massive chalk spots because there's so many plays and you're only getting one of them. I may look to Kyler Murray, who he frustrates me. I'm not a big fan, but the way we know he can move, maybe he can start really solidifying the running game. And against the Bengals, I wouldn't be stunned to see him have his best performance so far.
Well, we all know how this ends up going, is that Marcus Mariota is playing the Bills. He'll be 0% owned and throw 8 touchdowns somehow.
Yeah, all the Corey Davis, who I never get right. God, where is he?
He's
4,900. Jesus.
Like, if you had to pay down, if someone told you you loved your team, it was set up, and you only had $5,400 left for a quarterback, which is in this hypothetical world, which one would you take? Because I think I would take Chase Daniel.
Boy, if I had to do it.
Or Cousins, I guess.
Well, Cousins, okay. 50, yeah, mine would definitely be Cousins, because they're another offense where, yes, it probably doesn't work, but the outside production is so concentrated between Diggs and Thielen. If I had to go below Cousins, though, honestly, I would take a shot with Mason Rudolph at home. I know Baltimore's defense
Is bad.
is
It's straight up
it's
bad.
it's not. Yeah, what I was gonna say is I don't think it's as bad as we've seen, but it's certainly not the Ravens of old. So him at home in a game, you like Lamar, Hollywood Brown, maybe that gets going, and Rudolph is forced to really throw and play catch up.
Potentially so. I just think, like I said, that the Raiders defense only looks good against the run. Maybe the Bears defense just scores 3 touchdowns. They don't have to do anything. You just work out that if the Bears do get up in this game, you have to hope it's through the passing game, because once they get up by so much, they're going to stop passing all of a sudden. So I guess it really caps the upside. But he's so cheap. I actually think that if you're going to fade Dalvin Cook this week, unless you go on to Zeke as like the pivot running back player, Kamara, whoever you prefer, the actual pivot move is to not use Dalvin Cook and use Cousins, Diggs, and Thielen.
So that's leverage within a game, and that's something I think sometimes is underutilized. Where yeah, absolutely, that's playable. You just have to be prepared, and that's fine. That we have not the reluctance of them to open it up has been ridiculous. Now Thielen he voiced his displeasure, and Cousins, the pressure is mounting. So I wouldn't be stunned to maybe a squeaky wheel narrative. We know it's there. I just don't know if they'll let him go, and he needs to really get going to produce against some of these other quarterbacks.
Let's talk about tight ends, and there is only one question that people have about tight end this week. Are you going to use or full out fade Tyler Eifert against the Cardinals?
Well, I was underweight on Disley, and that didn't really work. It's so tough. I'm probably going to come in underweight. I'm not saying I'm not going to have any, because I think that's silly at 3,300, but I will try to look and see maybe I can spend up a little more and get a guy. It's certainly less ownership that can produce. And Eifert's still, if he doesn't score, I don't see any ways where it's not a nice fade. So it's still a red zone guy in my eyes. I think you can get away with it.
If we look at all those guys on the board right now, Witten, Watson, Cook, Davis, the Irish Assassin, James O'Shaughnessy, Eifert, Burton, Hayden Hurst, Atkins, Dawson, Knox. Those are like your $3,000 tight ends. If it's not Eifert, is there anyone there you would go to? Because I think the answer might be Dawson Knox.
Wow, what a world. Boy.
Who I don't particularly like by any means.
No, I mean, do you care who your quarterback is if you're clicking on Dawson Knox?
No.
Okay. I mean, I think that makes it easier if that's the case, where you don't have to worry about who's under center. Boy. I mean, for me, I would probably try to take a stab with maybe like OJ Howard, who we certainly have.
Who sucks? OJ Howard legit sucks.
He's very bad.
Like Delaney, I think Delaney would be the better play than OJ Howard in the spot.
Delaney, I mean, the Titans it's so tough for me with them. And I really, that game screams Derrick Henry 17-13. I'm not sure I want to get there. OJ Howard, I do still feel, I mean, he had, Mike Evans ended up with like 9 touchdowns, but if OJ Howard could have caught a couple, it would have changed some things. He had looks in that one. In the Saints, I mean, Jared Cook in that game, I don't really like that either. I'm going to try to get, some of these next level guys that are a little more expensive, but once again, they're not crippling your salary.
No, but we now get into the situation where I guess the mantra of the week is you want to pay up, because we talked about there's no good cheap quarterbacks, there's no good cheap running backs, there's no good cheap tight ends, that you might end up having to play 3 receivers from like $5,500 and down.
But I'm okay with that. I really am. And the defenses that I like are cheaper, on the cheaper side. And I think that even when you're quote unquote paying up, there's nobody, the most expensive guy on the slate is 8,700. That's a little different than, if guys are 94, 95, close to 10K, you can get away with having more guys in that upper half than you think. It's kind of just like a hybrid balanced look.
I think people will go to Ben Watson in his first game back. I'll take a pass on that. If you did want to go down lower than Eifert and you needed ultimate savings at the tight end position, we haven't actually talked about who we like at tight end yet that we want to use. But Goddard at $2,900 against the Jets makes some sense to me, although I really like Ertz. And Lance Kendricks, he and Steven Anderson are the only 2 men standing at tight end for the Chargers right now.
The Chargers just actually have run out of people. Yeah, Goddard is interesting. You mentioned Noah Fant, who
Oh, I didn't
that
even see
is
where he was at. He's
he's
2,800. Yeah,
yeah,
I actually kind of like Noah Fant.
yeah, that I have no problem with that kind of thing. Again, we're taking pretty tough lines. Why did Chris Herndon have to get suspended? So sick. Yeah, I don't hope to go down here, but you mentioned the Chargers have, if Inman sits, we're really wearing thin with just guys. How many targets can Keenan Allen realistically get? So you could look to that. But Noah Fant is a interesting super punt play if you think that the Broncos are throwing and not particularly at Casey Hayward.
So if we're going to go up at tight end, like I said, Waller, I think it just isn't a great position, even in a bad matchup. And I don't want to say that he's matchup proof because no one is matchup proof. Derek Carr might not have a second to pass in this game, but they're going to try to force feed him the ball, especially if Tyrell Williams is actually banged up. They're going to try their best, but if they get down, it's going to be Waller time. And even for $5,000, if he doesn't score a touchdown, I'll take a chance on his 15 targets in this game, whatever it might turn out. The superior plays, Ertz and Andrews and Hooper, I think are all really, really good options. I'm not big on Ingram this week. I just want to see how that shakes out. It's a bad matchup. Maybe going back to him after a disappointing week 4 could be a good play, but that's very expensive for a contrarian play at tight end. If I was just going to pay up at tight end, I would just use Zach Ertz.
So that's my biggest problem. I think that Ingram is sneaky because you have the combination of a bad week 4 and Golden Tate and a bad matchup. The problem is it's just too premium to get cute. $200 extra for Zach Ertz, who, people were a little disappointed. Talk about double teamed. I mean, they were blanketing him against the Lions, and then he was on the Thursday night game. I think Ertz is primed for a big game. Now, again, can you get all these guys? It depends how you build. It is a little tough. Hooper's been super impressive. And as you mentioned, Andrews with Lamar, no problem with them. So I'm going to try to get in this range. Waller scares me more than he scares you. I know the targets are going to be there. This Bears defense has really impressed me, and I'm not sure how many touchdowns the Raiders will even put up.
Yeah, like I said, I think that he can pay off value at $5,000 even without a touchdown. Then if you get a touchdown, all of a sudden it's like, ooh, here we go. 27 points for Darren Waller because he had 11 catches for 80 yards or something.
He's shown against, the Vikings, that was insane, and he didn't even score in that game, just nuclear involvement. So maybe they can. Maybe he's got some London ties. He likes playing over there. We'll find out. The London game used to be earlier, didn't it? Not to change subjects.
They're going to end up with an early game. When I talked to Feinberg and Cust about it, I think where Oakland is playing and all their fans are on the West Coast, that you can't have it at 6 a.m. their time because the fans actually want to watch the game. And then Jeff made the point that, hey, they play Chargers games in the early ones. Like, if they have no fans, so it doesn't matter.
It's all pretty accurate. Okay,
here's some Ertz numbers. Again, he's a very good, buy low, air yards type guy this week just because he hasn't scored a touchdown yet. But target-wise, 8, 7, 16, 7 through 4 games. Catches, 7, 4, 8, and 5. He's not going to kill you at all. He hasn't scored fewer than 10.5 fantasy points in any game so far. He doesn't have the significant upside that you necessarily want at the position on a week-to-week basis, but his floor is really good, and he's primed for one of these 2 touchdown games.
Yeah, he has not scored on the year, and now the worry with him, when you're backing someone in a game like that, it becomes critical that they have a fast start, because if the Eagles punch a couple in on the ground and they get a quick turnover, before you know it, it could get out of hand, and then he's very unlikely to contribute as much. But you said it. I wouldn't be stunned to see Zach Ertz get going and really have one of those signature monster games from him.
Let's close us out with defenses. Where are we going here? Because the 2 best defenses are by far the 2 best defenses of the week, but they're both super expensive and probably hard to get to based on the way that we've been talking this week.
So, yeah, as much as I would love to recommend, not that it matters who the Redskins are going to play at quarterback, but my God, that's just bad. I thought what you mentioned about the Saints is very interesting if you have the money, but I'm going to go all the way down. Not all the way, but a couple teams. the Chargers and the Panthers. They're 27 and 2,600. The Panthers are getting pressure last 2 weeks, boatload of sacks at home against Gardner Minshew. Even though, like I said, there are plays from these games on the offensive side, I think we can look to the defenses for both of them against Flacco and Minshew.
Yeah, I'm just looking right now. Philadelphia, worst defensive line, best. What am I looking at here? Defensive lines. All right. Yeah, not great Philadelphia so far, even against the Jets. They only have 3 sacks so far in 4 games. If we're looking at the best pressure defenses, Carolina comes in at number 1. They get a sack on over 10% of their pressures. There's only 3 teams that do that: Carolina, Chicago, and New England. So that is something to look for. Then you have Pittsburgh, a lot of that based off playing the Cardinals on Monday night. Green Bay still very good at it. Tennessee is a sneaky defense here. The problem with that game is on the Buffalo or Tennessee side, I just don't know how much these teams are going to pass. And if they're not passing, there's going to be no fantasy points to be had.
So the Tennessee game is a perfect example, I think, of what you were talking about earlier. I think that's a great spot for them. They might get Matt Barkley. The game right below them, the Cardinals and the Bengals, that is the game. It's all about opportunity. So the Titans defense, even though they're in a good spot, they just may not have many chances for big plays. Then you look at a game like Arizona and Cincinnati, there's going to be so many opportunities for big plays for these defenses just because there's going to be more plays and more bad plays. So I'm more apt to say, you know what, we're trying to to win one of these big tournaments, you need the big play on defense. I'm going to try to give myself as many chances as possible it's all about the pressure and the turnovers.
I'm trying to find who I have projected. I'm just kind of scrolling through it right now to run the most plays, and especially the most passing plays. Let's see here. Arizona, I do have projected to run the most passing plays of the week.
Yeah, just the way they play it, it's hard to ignore. And you mentioned how bad their offensive line is. I will have as much as again, it's one of these weeks where I'm going to have some Kyler Murray and I'm going to have some Bengals defense. It's just, that's how it works. The range of outcomes for that game is gigantic.
Maybe there's a sneaky pressure team that we can get access to. The Giants have a bunch of sacks. Like, what if the Giants just jump out early in this game and it forces Kirk Cousins to pass again?
I don't know if this will impact anything. I do worry about people saying, oh, the Giants, they put up 24 last week. Now they're at home against Kirk Cousins. Not that they're going to be popular. I'm not saying that. But I guess for me, the way that Carolina is generating pressure, I really think that's a pretty good spot for the same price in a game. I think the Panthers, I think they're about a field goal favorite. I like them in that spot.
Okay, so we'll go Carolina, although that could be a game where both teams decide, hey, we're going to run the ball.
Maybe. That's true too, but if they can get up, though, and Minshew, kind of a gunslinger mentality, I think they can get some pressure on him.
Yeah. Saints D, I like. Atlanta D against Houston?
And Deshaun Watson's always in that category because he takes a lot of hits. He makes a lot of crazy plays. I've just been so soured on Atlanta, and I think that could be a game where Houston really gets going and makes a statement at home.
Chargers, Tampa Bay, Carolina.
So
weirdly, Arizona is inside. They are 12th in pressure so far. Maybe it's the Cardinals.
Where are they? See, that's the other thing, though.
They're weirdly expensive.
Yeah, like that's what I was about to say. You're not incentivized to do that unless you're just going for it. Like some of these, if the Cardinals were, wow, the Redskins are 1,800. I didn't even know they went below 2,000.
Is there any merit to saying, hey, I can build a super team if I just take the Redskins at 1,800? Like the Jets scored 2 between defensive and special teams touchdowns against the Patriots. Like, it's not inconceivable Washington could score 10 fantasy points as a defense against the Patriots if something weird happens. And they're only 1,800. Like, we've been talking about saving money. Like, is there any case you can make that would be worth it?
No, not for me. Not against them. If I was going to do that, I would just play the Steelers against Lamar.
Should we be playing the Steelers against Lamar?
I might look at that. You know, I haven't built an. I do like this week really looking to some of the aggressive spots at the skill positions where I plan to have some really heavy double running back with Ertz and some other guys. And if that leaves me 2,100, I'm very comfortable. taking a stab at these defenses because for me, if you don't get all the way to the top with the obvious ones, there is minimal difference between what you're paying in the low threes and in the twos. I see a mix and match and have no problem stealing some money from there.
I'm like right now, the Steelers are 5th in adjusted sack rate, but a lot of those came on Monday night. That if you take away the Monday night game, they only have 6 sacks on the year. That I don't know what I really want to be looking at from them for defense. I know they have a very good run defense that's been proven out over the first 4 weeks, but this pass defense in the pass rush, is it just because they played the Bengals?
Possibly. I mean that's a not that this is super pertinent to the slate. I just the AFC North is very difficult to break down. The Bengals, you can get them out of here, but the other 3, I'm not sure exactly where they fall, and this will be a great measuring stick to see if Baltimore responds and if Pittsburgh can somehow claw back.
I mean, this would be a big game for them to win. I think they'll be a very popular defense this week.
Interesting, really?
Just because of the price, everyone just watched them annihilate the Bengals on Monday night, an island game, and people watch those, and they seem mispriced because of that. Like the pricing came out before the game. Like if this pricing had come out after Monday Night Football, they'd be $2,700.
I agree with that. My plan, like I said, my plan of action is to try to hit the mid twos, where the Panthers, the Giants, the Chargers kind of sit, and then mix and match with a couple one-offs. But I don't think I need to get too fancy. You just hope to hit. I mean, defense is something I think, you kind of just hope to roll the dice and connect the dot on the right team.
Do you think it is worthwhile to go out of your way to try to get Patriots or Bears into lineups in like a few of them?
I mean, in a few maybe, but I tend to not spend up at defense just because I think the extra salary doesn't correlate with your chances of getting what you're looking for, which is ultimately turnovers. Yeah, the Patriots should really murder the Redskins, but I'm not sure it justifies paying $1,600, $1,700 more in some spots over another team that can get some pressure.
I've never really done this before. Maybe I'll give it a look. Just special teams play. See if we can find someone good versus someone bad. New Orleans is first in special teams. Tampa Bay is second last in special teams.
Saints defense. Like I said before, not with that, but that adds to the Saints defense against coming off seeing Jameis. We know that's in there with him. In the dome, Tampa beat them in the dome last year. Maybe this is a spot. They're looking good. They looked fantastic against Dallas. Getting hot at the right time. I don't know. I wouldn't be stunned to see the Saints really lean on this defense while Breeze is absent.
The other only giant mismatch, the Giants are 6th in special teams and Minnesota's bottom 5.
Minnesota's just the Giants freak me out. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how much of that was them or how much was just the Redskins being that inept.
Yeah, I mean that could honestly be the case.
How bad do you think the Redskins are? Are they in Dolphins territory bad?
If there was a London game next week and it was Redskins at Dolphins, what would be the line? Redskins, Dolphins.
Now that the Redskins don't have a quarterback, I don't know. I would have said Redskins -3, something like that, but now I really don't know. Maybe the Dolphins would be favored. I'm a Josh Rosen, I don't want to say fan, but at least. No, actually, though, if I had to bet that game, I would have to lean with the Redskins. I can't. The Dolphins haven't scored a point in the second half.
It seems impossible.
It seems impossible. I talk about cone of shame. I bet the Dolphins last week.
Oh no, what are you doing?
I know it was just such a poor effort. I really thought 15.5 at home. I really like that spot. Thought I was a genius when it was 7-3, but they don't score in the second half. No more.
And they also don't play defense in the second half either.
Can confirm.
Also, the Chargers had a 10-minute drive that resulted in a field goal.
Well, that's peak Chargers. There's some really bad teams, and even the Bengals are starting to look. I don't think they're that bad, but they're pretty bad.
All right, I'll let you get out of here. Awesemo.com. You can find all Ben's work. But before we do this, if you were to build a single entry lineup or a cash lineup this week, who are the 2 guys that you have to have in it? It's McCaffrey and who?
Uh, for me, you know what? It would be Ertz. I really think in that type of setting, I'm willing to pay to the top at tight end because I don't think it's that much at 6K.
Okay. Follow Ben on Twitter at JazzRazDFS and tell everyone the live streams and all of the sports you got covered over there.
Yeah, well, obviously you can find me with doing golf, but we have a ton going on with NFL with me. Obviously, Alex Baker, who is just on another, it seems like an unstoppable heater at this point. Showdown, projections, tools, everything you need with the whole team. So if you haven't signed up and you want to, promo code JazzRaz to get you in the door, 50% off first month. And like I said, season's just getting started. So come check it out. Good times.
Do you use TweetDeck?
No, should I?
No, it's like it's shut down. It's really weird.
Oh, well, I missed it. I saw Dink, I think, tweeting about it, and I'm terrible at social media, as you can see. But did you use it?
Yeah, I mean, I've been using it for years.
I'm sure you have.
I mean, I have tweets scheduled. It seems to be back up and running now, though, so that's good news. I have tweets scheduled into 2020, so I need this to really stick.
Yeah, that would be. You see, you plan it out. That's smart. Very sharp.
Like, I could be dead today, and I'd be tweeting for the next 4 months.
That's comforting to know, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll have to schedule one for each of like the next 3 years or something like that, just in case I pass away. There can be like the yearly reminder, like, hey, Pat was around at one point.
Yeah, Luke List notifications. I respect that. Maybe I'll look into TweetDeck, get some scheduled after I take down this Millie this week.
Oh
with
my
the
God.
Pat Mayo bump.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll go schedule tweets for, I mean, Twitter probably won't be around in 3 years or whatever, but I'll schedule tweets for the next 20 years with my Masters picks. And then just before the Masters, whether I'm alive or not, you'll get Pat's Masters picks.
That is a tradition unlike any other, if I've ever heard one.
Posthumous Pat's predictions. Well, I'll figure out a better name.
Okay. Yeah, we got to work on that aspect, but I like the premise.
All right, Ben Rasa, thank you for being on twice in 1 week. So, I mean, you're good for like 2 months.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm anytime I'm feeling good. Hopefully this will be a good week 5 for us. I think we work through some stuff. I feel pretty good about this.
Yeah, I mean, this is still very early in the week. A lot can change. I'll re-up with Meanie on Friday. I'm going to be live again on Sunday morning as we kind of finalize these picks. But the purpose of the show isn't like, play this guy, play this guy, play this guy. We're too far out to know. Injuries can change so much. But I think just talking through the strategy of each position, like where we're targeting and the stacks we kind of like. Again, that can always change. But it does really help solidify my base for the week.
Same. I love doing that. And that's over at Awesome. That's, we run a strategy show each day of the week, and not each show is, pick these guys. It's about working through not just the process and kind of sometimes talking it out. You find some things, find some wrinkles. And then when it gets to the weekend, you're that much more ahead of the game and ready to go.
All right. I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at the PME on Twitter, Instagram, and the Facebooks. Told you about the giveaways. Play in the Pat Mayo Experience. Week 5, DraftKings contest. Best tournament on DraftKings, all right? I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you all for watching. If it's not Ben who wins $1 million, hopefully you win $1 million. Then you let me know about it, all right? I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!